Hey, noble ones, fancy seeing you here. What are you doing today? Nothing great, me neither. I'm not doing anything. In fact, do you see the little yellow cabinet in the background behind Mortal Kombat? That's Pac-Man. That's what I'm gonna do today. I'm just gonna play Pac-Man all day. That's all I'm gonna think about. The little beep 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 to run away from the ghosts. That's me today. Oh, you thought I was gonna do the review of the trailer of the new Roman thing about gladiators? Sorry, not a chance. Not a chance. You see the little helmet down here? It's just decoration. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. Just because I have a Roman helmet, it doesn't mean I'm gonna do a review of the... Nah, I'm not paid enough for that. I mean, literally, you recently just got me to review Gladiator 2, and then Metatron, please, can you please review Gladiator 2? It's really, really nice. Then I watch it and my blood pressure goes up to the roof. I'm not doing that today. I'm very sorry. That's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. You still here? Alright, listen. We just hit 900,000 subscribers, okay? So I'm just gonna do one thing for you, just one. I'm gonna read the synopsis, and then I'm gonna call it a day, and, you know, Pac-Man. Okay, great. So I'm just gonna do that. So let's do that. Let's go. Here we are, official trailer 2, Those About to Die. Okay, already the title. That's what I mean. Aue imperator morituri te salutant. That's what they are doing, right? That's the title from the famous Latin phrase that all gladiators said. That's a myth. No gladiator ever said that. No, imperator morituri te salutant. No gladiator ever said that. But yeah, okay, Metatron, are you sure about it? Yeah, we'll read it. Suetonius and Cassius Dio. That's where they get it. We'll read it. Or we won't, I don't know, because I'm just doing the synopsis. Let's go. Synopsis. Those About to Die is an epic drama set in the corrupt world of a spectacle-driven gladiatorial competition. Right. Exploring a side of ancient Rome never before told? Never before told. Roman gladiators. You see, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. I just read one sentence. You want me dead. Okay. Do you see this? This is a wonderful video game for Sega Mega Drive / Genesis. It's called Centurion Defenders of Rome. You know what this game features? It features gladiatorial combat, chariot races in ancient Rome. And guess what? During the gladiatorial combat, you can bribe the lanista. So you can actually, it's corrupt. It's exactly... When was this published? 1991. Alright, let's watch this. Let's watch it. Let's do it. What did I do to deserve this? Hit me.
Behold, this arena will be...
Alright, so I just learned, you told me that if I click comma, splendid, I can go frame by frame. Thank you. Alright, so already, as usual, this is the amphitheater, of course, Colosseum, and we have the same problem that we had with Gladiator 2. All the statues are white. There is no color. Statues in period would have been in full color. And by the way, since when I said this on Gladiator 2, I didn't actually provide any iconography to prove my point, here is the iconography. You're very welcome. And we also see statues in the front. There is no color whatsoever, and this is already the first incorrect depiction of ancient Rome. We are what? 4 seconds in. Great. It's looking good.
Will be built for Rome.
Wait, is that Anthony? Is that Anthony Hopkins? I think it is Anthony Hopkins, is it? Or no? So is he playing the Emperor? Because if he's playing the Emperor, I mean, he's from Wales. Kind of gives me more of a like Celtic / Germanic look rather than what I would expect a Roman emperor to look. I mean, there are some Roman emperors that could have had a look sort of similar, but still not. Whatever. Anyways, I'm kind of nitpicking at this point. Oh wait, that's Alright, so at least for what I can see, apart from these guys that still have the sort of vertical crests that we see omnipresent on every Roman legionary, which they shouldn't have, but at least the guys in the back, these are clearly officers, they're centurions, we see they have the horizontal crest, and I have to say, that for what I can see from really a distance, I'm like part of the crowd, I suppose, they look good. The helmet looks good, the crest looks good, I think they're wearing hamatas, or gallica, the mail, so at least the legionaries may be dressed well, for what I can see from this shot. Now watch it be wearing leather lorica segmentata and we're back to square one again.
as master of the games.
It is Anthony Hopkins, yeah. Oh, this is for the chariot race. Well, this looks really good. The statues, as always, are not painted. The columns are all white, so that's all nonsense. But it should have been full of color, as I was saying. But at least the shape of the arena, this is where they do the chariot races, that looks good. So at least that one.
Man can devise entertainment that they really want.
Okay, yeah, we do see a lot of color with the public. So when it comes to all of these pieces of clothing and like cloth that you see, we do have a multitude of colors, and that's not incorrect. That's good. But then again, these in ancient Rome would have been all sorts of different prices, price tags, like completely different. Let me elaborate a little bit. For example, we see some blue. Now, blue can be extremely expensive or it can be relatively cheap. It kind of depends on the type of blue in ancient Rome, because of course, it's not like today that we use synthetic materials and constituents and chemicals really to produce our colors. In ancient Rome, it really depended on availability, and each color would have also expressed a certain level of wealth. We know about, for example, purple garments, like this guy's wearing purple, which is kind of, I mean, I don't know who he's supposed to be, but just someone in the crowd who's wearing purple. Usually only the emperor, some generals, or extremely rich merchants, but in general it's only emperors and generals that can afford, so legati, they can afford purple. And besides, a whole tunic of purple, this would have been like the price of buildings. Like, this would have been extremely expensive. Public buildings, I mean. When it comes to green, this is a very expensive color too. The reason being is that in order to achieve green, they first needed to dye a tunic yellow. And after the whole process was done, then they would repeat it again to achieve green, which made it significantly more expensive than, for example, some kind of rust color like this tunic here, which would have instead been relatively cheap. And also undyed tunic, so undyed linen, like these guys, that would have been also what a lot of soldiers would have been wearing, apart from the red that they would wear in combat, and the white, so actual bleached white, that they would wear during parades. So colors are very important in ancient Rome, and there's so many people of green. I mean, guards would wear green, for what we know. But again, so much green all over the place. I mean, this is kind of strange. And of course, we see people wearing leather braces, which are absolute complete nonsense. They are never found in iconography, as I've already spoken about ad nausea on this channel. Right, let's continue.
Let the games begin!
Alright, so the fact that he's wearing a deep, rich blue-colored garment is fine. This would have been extremely expensive. Something like indigo blue or very rich blue would have been expensive, on the expensive side, whereas a more pale blue would have been cheap. We know that some blue was connected, at least for when it comes to Vegetius. It tells us that the Roman navy in Britannia was wearing blue as a sort of early camouflage, if you will, including in fact the veils of their ships and even possibly their shields, their garments. Everything was blue in order to be less visible and harder as targets when they were in the sea, which I think is really interesting if you think about it. So camouflage, absolutely present in the late Roman Republic, but it wouldn't have been this kind of rich blue. It's mentioned as Venetian blue. We don't exactly know what it means. Probably was relatively dark-ish, but not like this.
I've ordered animals.
I have to say, that shot of the chariots looked really good. So at least from a cinematic perspective, I need to give them points here, because this looks absolutely beautiful as a shot. And I love the, 4 black horses, 4 brown horses, 4 white horses. This looks really good. And by the way, all of this is present in the aforementioned game. So maybe that's where they got their inspiration. No, this is based on a book. Now, this is an awesome late 15th century medieval hat. And you know what else is awesome? The kind sponsor that made this video possible, Private Internet Access. Whenever you are browsing online on an unprotected device, such as your phone, computer, tablet, console, your device is transmitting a great amount of information which can be viewed by various different entities. A virtual private network hides your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel and server infrastructure. This way, it shields your digital life from the eyes of those that are looking to exploit your private information. Thanks to Private Internet Access, you'll also be able to utilize all sorts of websites and services online that would be otherwise restricted restricted depending on your physical location. For instance, streaming services such as Netflix, Amazon Prime and more will have a different library depending on where you are. Watching Netflix without private internet access is like paying for a venti caramel macchiato, but you only get a cup of water to drink. Okay, that's too American of a metaphor for me. I'm Italian, let's make it Italian. Watching Netflix without private internet access is like paying for a real Italian caffè espresso, but you only get a cup of water with sugar. So simply use the VPN to change your IP address to one of the 91 countries available and gain access. Private internet access is also available for all platforms: Windows, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and with a single subscription you can protect an unlimited amount of devices. Private internet access is the world's most transparent VPN provider with over 30 million downloads. They never record or store user data, and their no-log policy has been proven multiple times in court, which is why I trust them. And this is also risk-free since there is a 30-day money-back guarantee and a 24/7 customer support. So, what are you waiting for? Use my link in the description, and by doing so you will get an 83% discount on private internet access. That's just $2.03 a month, and you will also get 4 extra months completely for free. And massive thanks to Private Internet Access for sponsoring my video.
I've ordered animals and gladiators from every corner of the Empire.
Okay, and here we are. So I was about to say something nice about what he just stated, that, you know, gladiators and animals would have been taken from all the corners of the empire, which is absolutely fine. We know that there was an enormous level of variety and even diversity within gladiatorial combat because, once again, they loved a spectacle. And the Romans weren't racists, they just hated everyone equally. But regardless of that, here we are. This shot is horrible. I mean, the shields are good, they're fine, good shape, as I always say. They're based on the Finding Adura Europos, as I was mentioning in Gladiator 2, but here we are again with the trope of the leather, lorica segmentata. I was just once again right. And also, it's black leather. Like, can you imagine? I understand that this is supposed to be some kind of Praetorian Guard. Can you imagine? Leather, black leather, this looks like an epic metal band. This is what this looks like. There's no evidence whatsoever for leather lorica segmentata, so that this would have been metal, iron, or low-carbon steel. Also, this looks like biker gear because it has these studs that are clearly modern. This looks horrible. And all they would have needed to do, before anyone says, oh, Metatron, budget, guys, this stuff costs. And a real lorica segmentata does not cost more than this. It's just bad advisors. Give me the same budget, I'll make them look perfect. But here we are. At least the helmets are not too big for these actors, so I'll give them a point over Gladiator 2, where the helmets were massive.
We're about to die!
Alright, this is a beautiful shot, and we've got a lot to say, because I think this is a great moment to now introduce how gladiatorial classes worked. What type of gladiators do we see here? Well, we have two retiarius or retiari. So basically these were sort of light armored gladiators. They're quite famous because they use the protagonist. In this case, we see that he's a retiarius, and they are gladiators that would use a trident and a net. And normally these were paired against Murmillo class. So what is a Murmillo? A Murmillo is a heavy gladiator in the sense that not only he would have been more armored than a Retiarius, but also they would have been carrying... Now, what type of gladiator are they facing? So this is kind of strange to me, because in theory, a Retiarius, at least at first, because the situation with gladiatorial classes changes over time, I'll tell you about that in a second, but in general, a Retiarius should be paired against a Murmillo. What a Murmillo is a heavy gladiator in the sense that not only would have been more armored than a Retiarius, the light type, but also they would be carrying a large shield, basically a Roman scutum, and a gladius, so they would be armed like the military, and they would be wearing this big helmet with a sea symbol of a sea monster, and that's where it gets the name from. And this was also a way to recreate kind of a battle between the Retiarius, who is the fisherman, and the Murmillo, who is the sea monster. The problem that I have here is that even though, like, I can't really see the helmet, so if there is a fish on top of the helmet, that's the helmet of a Murmillo. The shield appears to be really big, which means, once again, this should be a Murmillo, and he is very muscular. but he's carrying a sika. A sika, which is this bent sword, is not the sword of a murmillo, is the sword of a thrax. Now, the thrax has a similar helmet, but they don't have the fish, they have the sika instead of the gladius, and they carry a small rectangular shield, so it's once again one of those pairings. It's either at first you put a murmillo versus a retiarius, or you put a murmillo versus a thrax. So if this is a thrax, he should be the opponent of a murmillo, not a retiarius. Now, I don't know if this is the pairing in this case, but it could be. I really hope, because as we go forward in Roman history, the retiarius starts being paired against another type of gladiator, which is the secutor. And the reason is that if you look at the helmets that were worn by, for example, murmillo, and they are full of sort of bending and spikes, if you will, not really spikes, but edges, sharp edges, the net would connect to those, and they would make the murmillo's life a living hell. And so, because they wanted to always have these fights evenly matched, they started to have the retiarius versus the secutor, which was a different type, similar to the murmillo, still heavy class, big shield, gladius, but the helmet was round, you must have seen it, with the big holes, so that it would be harder for the retiarius net to catch, and that becomes the actual match, retiarius versus secutor. Secutor means someone who chases you. It's a chaser in Latin.
We who are about to die.
Let's talk about the title a little bit. So, those about to die. As I was saying, this is a very famous Latin phrase that I think people normally connect to gladiators. So the idea is, and it is very epic to think about gladiators facing the emperor and telling him, Ave imperator, so hail emperor, those who are about to die salute you, morituri te salutant. But that sentence was never uttered by gladiators. So already the fact that this is a show about gladiators and that's the title, it's already wrong. So where does that come from? Well, I can actually put it up right here because it comes from two, Cassius Dio and Suetonius. But this was specifically said in one instance. One instance. It was uttered to Emperor Claudius. So, once again, I'm not sure about the specific setting of this, but if the emperor is not Claudius, and he does not look like Claudius one bit, so it clearly isn't Claudius. I don't know who that is, but it's not Claudius, I can tell you that. And this was only recorded as something that some criminals, condemned criminals, not gladiators, said to Claudius. Not to mention that this was normally said, probably was, it's also possible that it was made up by Suetonius just to make fun of Claudius. But regardless, let's read it. So first, we read from Suetonius, even when he was on the point of letting out the water from Lake Fucinus, he gave a sham sea fight first. To give you context, this is during what is called a naumachia, which is basically a sea or a naval battle recreation within an amphitheater, in this case the Colosseum. These absolutely happened, but as I say, this wasn't a normal gladiatorial combat. First of all, it was a naval battle recreation. In fact, that's why it's saying before it was letting out the water from the lake. But when the combatants cried out, Hail Emperor, they who are about to die salute thee, he replied, or not, and after that all of them refused to fight, maintaining that they had been pardoned. Upon this he hesitated for some time about destroying them all with fire and sword, but at least leaping from his throne and running along the edge of the lake with his ridiculous tottering gait, he induced them to fight, partly by threats and partly by promises. So as you can see, this is a passage in which Suetonius is, the whole thing is not really to record an event, is to make fun of Claudius as an emperor. And then as we read Cassius Dio, we read, those who were to take part in the sea fight were condemned criminals, not gladiators. And each side had 50 ships, one part being styled Rhodians and the other Sicilians. Yay. First they assembled in a single body and all together addressed Claudius in this fashion, Hail Emperor, we who are about to die salute thee. And when this is no wise availed to save them, and they were ordered to fight just the same, they simply sailed through their opponents' lines, injuring each other as little as possible. This continued until they were forced to destroy one another. So, not only this only had to do with a naval battle, it didn't have to do with gladiators, and it is possible a piece of anti-imperial propaganda. And so the fact that they called the whole show like this is already historically inaccurate, not to mention that I hope that they're not gonna then propagate the idea or the myth that gladiators died all the time, because that was not the case. Occasionally a gladiator would die. If you read Roman law, you'll notice that actually there were some severe sanctions, in the sense that you normally, if you were the patron of an event, a gladiatorial combat event, you would pay the lanistas, or the people that were training gladiators from the gladiatorial schools. You would pay a certain amount of money for each gladiator. Imagine it like a rent. You would rent the gladiators. But if a gladiator dies, there were specific laws in place that force you to pay enormous amount of money, because you needed to cover all the financial loss for all the other fights. So if the gladiator dies, as an emperor or as whoever it is that is sponsoring the event, you're gonna have to pay a lot of money, because of course it would be a disaster for the school to lose their gladiators all the time, because it takes so much resources and time to train them. So I hope they're not going into those are about to die because gladiators always die, there's always like one left standing and one is dying. That's not how it works. And we know about the statistics, specific statistics of how many gladiators died. Yes, they did, but not as many as people think. It occasionally happened, but not that often, particularly if they were really good veterans, combatants.
My children have been taken from me. Show them you can fight or die trying.
I see. So the protagonist is a black gladiator, which is fine. I mean, at the end of the day, the Romans did absolutely encounter. The other day, I actually read a comment. I want to show you the comment, in fact, very quickly, that I thought was absolutely nonsense. Let me go on my Twitter. There we go. So this is a comment that happened on my channel, but then I posted it on Twitter. And this guy said the Romans never encountered sub-Saharan Africans, and I told him that is factually incorrect. It is factually incorrect. And I sometimes wonder, where do people read these things? First of all, of course, there were Africans from Central Africa, from Eastern Africa, from Western Africa, in Northern Africa, and we know that the Romans absolutely, they colonized Northern Africa, and they had been having contact with Northern Africa for a very long time. And I'm not just talking about Egypt, I'm talking about all of the areas, including modern day Tunisia, which is where you had Carthage. Now, in Carthage, we know Carthaginians were in black, where they were most likely from the Levant, but we do know that they had a large enclave of black people within Carthage. So if you walked the streets of Carthage, it would have been absolutely normal to see black people. And some of these people we know had also positions of importance and power within Carthage. Now, on top of that, there is the whole situation with when the Romans faced in combat the Kandake, the black queens of the kingdom of Kush. And I talk about that on this video at around like minute 11 or something. It's in the middle of the video, but you'll find a link in the description below. So this is nonsense. Now, you know that I'm all about actual historical accuracy. So whenever they do this forced representation and they put characters that make absolutely no sense within the historical record, but just because they have to have someone, a person of color on screen, I always complain about it, because I'm always like, no, let's show things how they actually were. But in this case, it's not a problem that they have a black gladiator. Not a problem at all. This could absolutely have been the case in ancient Rome.
I will face him on the track,
Okay.
and I will defeat him.
Betting everything on one race is risky.
It's all for nothing.
Oh, he's a gambler.
We who are about to die.
Anyways, that's what I wanted to say about the gladiatorial classes. I'm actually going to show you. So, well, let's see if we see them fight.
Lose you.
We all need different things.
Wealth, position, power.
Okay, wait a second. What's going on here? Okay, so he is using what appears to be some kind of medieval mace. Look, it's a medieval flanged mace. What on earth? That is really, really strange. Also, the shields that they're using, I mean, this one looks like some kind of bronze shield that they let develop a patina. I don't want to talk about it too much because I can't really see the way he's carrying it. Normally these shields would have a center grip, but there are some occasions in iconography where we see strapped shields too. So yeah, once again, but he's wearing what appears to be some kind of lorica segmentata, like a short lorica segmentata for some reasons. And also, what's the point of carrying a shield if you cast it away? I mean, the guy could have attacked him. So even the fight choreography is kind of strange, but then again, the medieval mace is really medieval mace.
And the excitement of revenge.
Yeah. Yeah, also all of these, which are supposed to be, I think, officers in the Roman army. I mean, the helmet is okay. We do see helmets that look kind of like that, like this. I've seen it more in generals than officers, but whatever. But they are all wearing, once again, leather armor with these braces. This looks absolutely horrible when it comes to the costume department, I have to say. So unfortunately, it seems like more leather it is.
It's these Romans. You're making them suffer!
It is that time.
So it also seems to be that this is again one of those tropes whereby the gladiator seeks revenge, hates the empire, but I thought they said that no one had ever done this before, and this is instead a typical, I mean, even Gladiator 1, Gladiator 2, I think any movie since the freaking 50s, any movie that has ever talked about like Spartacus is always about that. It's like, oh, the gladiator hates the Romans and he wants revenge against the Romans because he was wronged. I don't see anything original here, Peacock original, but we'll see.
We need to excite them. We need to thrill them.
Okay, so they do have a naumachia, so a naval battle. I appreciate that. I'm not sure about the crocodiles, but I always like seeing naumachia, although then again, depending on when this is set, you know, now these sort of naval battles were relatively common early on, but already if we are in the 3rd century, 4th century, these wouldn't have been a thing anymore, at least in the Colosseum, but it is what it is.
Enough is good. More is better.
Those look like Celts to me. Oh my gosh, these archers look horrible, and also white fire arrows. But oh my gosh, these archers, look at the leather, these look absolutely horrible. Even the helmets, everything about this scene is terrible to look at. Types of bows. But let's go before that. So I see these look like, they kind of look like Celts to me, which once again, I mean, the Romans did show their enemies a lot in the Colosseum. In fact, that was a thing, which is also why there are some early gladiator types that will actually change. They will change the name because they usually give like the Thrax from people from Thrace, but even earlier than that, there were like the Samnites. There were some gladiatorial classes that were always representing enemies of Rome, but then as these enemies actually, if allegiances change, then they change the names because it's not good to show an ally of Rome fight in gladiatorial combat and being defeated and killed and made fun of. So yeah, it's fine that they have some Celts, although the shields don't look Celtic. It's kind of a mixture between African stuff and something that I would think is Celtic. So this is kind of strange, and also this is clearly some kind of gay scene, which, once again, this is ancient Rome. It's not as common as people tell you, and it wasn't as accepted as people tell you. Ancient Rome, nor ancient Greece, was a sort of LGBT paradise, as some people say, but absolutely this would have happened. I mean, once again, this is ancient Rome. There are documented instances, and if this is pre-Christian, I would say that, yeah, someone rich could do whatever they wanted sexually, so this isn't a historically inaccurate scene by any means.
More is better. Too much is perfect.
Oh, Rise of Rome, the game. Okay, so then I saw for a moment that there was, yes, so this is also some sort of animal battle. I mean, I don't know where they found a white lion, but it looks really good, I'll give him that. Although then again, once again, we have all white columns should be in color. The temple here should be full color. The statues should be in color. So at this point, I'm going to say this lion was whitewashed too, and probably he wasn't white. But regardless of that, we see that this is some kind of hunting game, which they did exist. It's just that usually they were separated by the gladiatorial fights. So you had the hunting, and then you had the gladiatorial fights. So I wouldn't put a gladiator against this, but whatever. And then, okay, so now from being a Retiarius, he became a Dimachirus, which is the gladiator that fights with double gladi. So I suppose he's changing his class throughout the telling. Not very common. Usually gladiators would specialize. It's not that it never happened, so I'm not going to say that's impossible. Also, we see scale here, very, very uncommon type of armor. It seems like they're using the same props as Gladiator 2. Is that what's happening here? I think they're sharing props. Okay, so July 18th, right, so you got me, noble ones, I did it. Here's your review, a reaction of the trailer. If you enjoyed this, let me know. I certainly didn't, but I will watch it. I will watch it and see what it's all about, if it's good or not, and if you want me to review the first episode, just let me know in the comments as always. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye. Morituri te salutant. You muppet.